The Kaiser Guard are well-armored foot soldiers capable of absorbing a lot of punishment before yielding. The otherwise relatively generic swordsman is also capable of inflicting critical hits, making engaging large formations of them a risky venture. Imperial Knights are surprisingly weaker than their Kaiser Guard brethren and have only the advantage of high speed at their disposal. When being dealt with in rough terrain, these units are little more than cannon fodder, easily picked off by axes, bows, and magic. Mega Loaders are steam-powered attack vehicles that mount a powerful arbalest heavy crossbow. Despite their range, they move slowly and do not fare well in rough terrain. They are best engaged at point-blank range, where they cannot fire back. Master Mages wield destructive Freeze-2 magic, capable of dealing heavier damage than Blaze. They are mercifully easy to kill due to their low hit points and defense, and should be engaged and destroyed quickly before they are able to cast. Franz is an Imperial General, heavily armored and armed, as well as being able to move incredibly quickly. His Dominion Ray ability inflicts extreme damage, as well as causing an illusion effect, which dramatically reduces the target's chance to hit. As a lance-wielding opponent, he can inflict horrendous damage on our sword-wielding units. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Let's Play Shining Force 3. This is Battle 13, I'm calling it Betrayal in the Borderlands. It has a really dull name, otherwise, so we're not going to go into that. Our brave heroes are advancing on what could be classed as a rather large Imperial force, all the way over to the right, and you're going to see them momentarily. However, this battle contains a nasty surprise for both the Republicans and the Imperials, and you will see why in just a moment. Otherwise, this battle flows like any other battle. We've got a nice selection of new units here, but they don't do anything particularly noteworthy, so we're just going to be clearing our way through. Now, here we go. Let me show you this. I said there'd be a nasty surprise. You should remember these fellows from earlier. Not specifically the monsters, but the character in the middle of the formation. Indeed, you saw her outside of Saraban. The Guardian statue. Interesting. I wonder why they're going there. No good will come of it. Now, from a gameplay perspective, what makes this interesting is what you are about to see, at least relatively shortly. Now, there are a lot of enemy movements in this particular battle, so I've cut a lot of them out for the sake of saving time. Otherwise, this battle's about 40 minutes long. A lot of it consists of looking at units that aren't moving, or watching things like this. Yes, indeed, the White Lords actually engage the Imperials. They will kill that entire unit. That entire unit also will not fight back, so there is no point in watching that happen.
Prepare to die.
Especially when there's ass to be kicked. Now, these units do have an awful lot more HP than stuff we've seen in the past. Indeed, they can't be run through in one shot by Dantes, which makes them a little bit trickier to deal with. And, of course, we get the obligatory waste of time vampire bats. What we basically have to deal with here is two formations. We've got the formation near the bridge and the formation in the middle there, rather than three formations as we would have had to deal with had there not been a nice bit of plot intervention there by a demon-possessed General Spiriel. As to why? Well, if you remember what happened at the end of the last battle, you heard Basanda specifically talking about her new and interesting tool. You do the math. Yeah, they literally just stand around. They won't even fight back. Funnily enough, one of them does actually near the end, although that's not intended. I think that's just some crazy bug. They're just supposed to stand there and be killed. It's not worth watching because the Imperial Knights in this are absolutely pathetic, and against White Lords, they don't stand a chance. Now, because of their ability to inflict critical hits, I'm putting Kite in the forest. By putting Kite in the forest, I gain Land Effect. Now, Land Effect is relatively simple to understand. It's been explained briefly earlier. What it does is it gives you an amount of bonus defense equal to the difference between the opponent's Land Effect and your Land Effect. Doesn't really do much, make much of a difference here, but it can knock off a couple of points of damage. Always helpful. And that's a mega loader. That's a... I wouldn't say it's an artillery piece as such. It's effectively an archer with more HP than a normal archer. And now that is where the land effect can really come into play. Because he's firing into the wood, which has a 30% land effect, the mega loader is doing less damage than you would expect. It's only knocking off about a point, but considering the amount of people that are engaging Kite at this point, it's not a bad idea. Certainly later on it becomes very important, particularly against bosses. If you can use the land effect against a boss character, it makes a huge difference. In the meantime, Spiriel and her escort are just going to move. You can't engage them, you can't get there in time. Indeed, they're not actually counted as physical figures on the battlefield. Otherwise, you'd clearly see that they wouldn't all move at once. As far as the game's concerned, they're not actually there. Now, this is our new elf wizard by the name of Noon, and I want to demonstrate his awful voice acting, so here we go.
Now bear my Arctic blast.
Yay! And so forth. It has to be said that I have difficulty determining whether or not his is the worst voice acting, or whether the Cronus Vandal so far has had the worst voice acting. It's debatable. We could go into some kind of rap battle. Now, the freeze you just saw, it's comparable to Blaze, although it's slightly better. It does cost more mana, as you probably noticed. It is a slightly more damaging spell. There is no secondary effect on it, sadly. Now, it'd be nice if they froze them in place.
Get ready.
But that doesn't actually happen. That's not something you need to worry about. But yeah, potentially up to about rank 3 and 4, once you get there, it's a little bit better than Blaze. The thing is, Mascarin's a better magician. So that also makes a little bit of a difference. So you tend to find that Mascarin and Noon do about the same kind of damage. It's worth getting friendship between the two of them for hideously large bonuses. We won't really see Noon come into his own until he gains Soul Steel, and that's not going to be for a while yet. He does gain Spark, just like Mascarin does, but he's nowhere near as good at it. So we don't tend to use it very much. To make a decision on what I'm actually going to do here. Eldar is also always a nasty prospect for bringing into the middle of enemies.
You're late.
Unless she does something useful like that. The sword does great damage in comparison to the wings, but has less defense and no bonus counter. Now, Kite's on relatively low health, but I know I can get him healed, so I'm not too worried about it. So I might as well clear out one of these Kaiser Guard and gain a little bit of experience. And there we go, we'll do a rank 2 heal from there. Get him all the way back up to full, and reinforce his role as the tank of the group. You can see the AI's gone back to being a little bit more traditional. It went a little bit odd, a little bit weird in the last couple of fights, primarily because of the presence of Slate. But in this case, they're mostly going for Kite, which is absolutely fine. Now, funnily enough, the elf units, and Hayward counts as one of those, actually move incredibly well in forests. They can move at full speed in a forest, which is really useful. Very good for scouting. What we may do later on is actually give one of the few speed-boosting items in the game to Hayward, so that we can use him as an advanced scout.
Prepare yourself.
Long-awaited Special 2 there. That's rank 2 in Blades, which should make Slate marginally more effective, although he's still lacking in defense. We gave him a defense bracer, it doesn't matter. His defense is so low at this point. I think we've just had really bad luck with stat-ups. Usually, Slate is not as vulnerable. Although Mascarin never fails to be horribly vulnerable. As you can see there was no other way that they could have got to Kite. They had him surrounded on all sides, and obviously what wasn't surrounded by enemies was surrounded by friends, so they went for the next weakest character they could find. I wish those smug little bats would go away, I really do. I think, if I remember correctly, this is actually the last time we see them. I don't think there's another bat variant in this scenario. I don't think so. No, I don't think so. They actually give you some more interesting bats. There is another bat, I believe, in Scenario 2 and 3 called the Slash Bat, which is infinitely nastier, but we're not going to be seeing that for a long time. Obright finally proving his usefulness there. Always nice to see. He's now using the Power Axe, which we acquired in Kronos Village. I want to get him a couple of ranks in that. We've already got him 1 rank in throwing axes, or tomahawks, as they are sometimes referred to in this game in the guides. Sorry, I've got to hear this again.
Now bear my Arctic blast.
It just lightens the mood, don't you think? Death-defying battles, evil demons, the rise and possible fall of the entire world. But he's very, very chirpy about it. Surprisingly so, considering he's been a zombie for the past few weeks. Sybil really coming into her own at the moment, which is unusual. I don't tend to find Sybil to be a particularly good character. Well, I think we've just had a lot of luck with her this time around. It's interesting to see from game to game and from playthrough to playthrough just who ends up being the good characters and who doesn't. Some of them,
Prepare to die.
like him, are always great. Dantes is always fantastic, but there are other characters who will vary from playthrough to playthrough due to the random nature of the stat ups. Some of them just end up being absolutely awful. Eldar right now is suffering from some serious issues as regards to stats, whereas in previous games, I've had Eldar be one of the most dangerous characters in my entire force. Well enough, I usually get Kite to do more damage by this stage as well, but we have had some bad stat ups, so I suppose that can be forgiven. Off goes Spiriel. Bye-bye. We will see you soon. Okay, I've skipped it forward a little bit here because we've pretty much dealt with the first group and we're going to move on to the main formation, which can, most of the time, be split up and dealt with relatively easily. That's one of the issues that Shining Force has with its boss design in particular. A lot of the bosses that they put in have formations that are very easily split up, i.e. you can pretty much ignore the boss until you've killed all of his bodyguard or relevant forces and then just kill him. Later on, there are bosses who don't work out too well with that strategy, because they've either got some kind of healing magic, they've got massive AoE abilities, or they can one-shot. Thankfully, there aren't too many bosses in the game that can one-shot. Most of them have a Soul Steal style ability, which is based on luck versus luck and then a random chance roll. That's something that we can stay out of the way of. The Soul Steal spell has a very short range, so we can always keep our higher luck characters in range. Effectively sponge the Soul Steal with that and then keep everyone else out of the way.
Get ready.
Not to be outdone by Dantes, Sybil cutting her way through absolutely everything. We're getting a little bit too close to those Master Mages, so I'm going to get in there. Funnily enough, were it not for terrible AI, this would be a sudden death move for Dantes, but you can rely, generally speaking, on the AI's tendency to go for other characters. And if you run into a spellcaster at point-blank range, most of the time, the spellcasters will do something very silly. Not always the case, so it's still a little bit of a risk. 2 of those freeze 2s could very easily dispatch Dantes without too much of a problem, but every time I've done this battle and done this with Dantes, it's never happened, and this is why. Some of them will actually physically attack Dantes for no apparent reason. I don't know whether or not it's something in the script about mana efficiency, but you'd think not, considering they just walked around Dantes and used a AoE spell on a single target. A single target who indeed has more hit points than Dantes does. I don't know what the logic is there. There are times when the AI makes no sense whatsoever, and I don't see how the scripting could actually operate in that way. Never mind. I'm not going to object too much, because that gives us the opportunity to dispatch this mage, and hopefully kill the second one before he gets a chance to react. Indecisive Grace. Might as well drop a quick heal on O'Bright. Always best to be healing with the healing characters, as I've said before, and I'll keep saying it until you've got it in your heads. You have to just use healing every single time you possibly can, because that is the way that the healers get their experience. Otherwise, they're going to end up lagging behind, and there's nothing worse than a vulnerable healer, particularly one that can get one-shotted, which, if you're not careful, can happen. Hayward's sadly not in range. Funnily enough, his next bow upgrade will allow him to be. So we're looking forward to getting that, where he actually gets a 3-square range. And there's the new special we acquired, and good lord, is it painful. Okay, I've just got a couple of Kaiser Guard, a Mega Loader, and a Knight to deal with, plus those White Lords. As to what we're going to do with the White Lords, well, what we might try and do is see if we can catch them. White Lords have significantly higher stats than anything else on the board at this point, aside from, obviously, the boss character. They are pretty much Kaiser Guard buffed up to relatively high levels. I wouldn't worry about it. You will see a bestiary entry on them relatively soon, indeed in the next battle. Oh no, being prophetic. But we do have the opportunity, if we're quick enough, to catch a couple of them. And why would we want to do that, aside from fun? Well, it's fun, for one thing, and secondly, they give great experience. Anything that's ahead of the curve tends to give good experience, and with characters like Dantes and Sybil, Dantes sitting on level 12, Sybil at level 11, both of which who could quite easily reach the White Lords if we ran for it before they exit via the bridge, they could benefit. Might as well. Why not? No point wasting mana on that thing, that's for sure. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to clear out all of the enemies surrounding Franz and then surround Franz. Because of his single-target nature, he's not going to be too much of a threat. Yes, he can do a hideous amount of damage, but nothing we can't heal over. And then I'm going to try and rush Dantes, and perhaps Eldar and Sybil as well, since Eldar's not quite as fast, but he can cross the mountain, so I don't know, it's a little bit of a risk putting Eldar there. Eldar's still particularly vulnerable, very low defense, but we'll see what happens. Maybe see if we can catch a few of those White Lords off guard and get a little bit of experience. Now, I'm not going to show you all of the Franz battle because there really is absolutely no point. I'll show you his special abilities, I will show you how much damage he can do, how much damage we can do to him, and then skip forward to something more interesting, i.e. the end. I do promise that there will be more interesting bosses to come. Indeed, the boss of the next battle is significantly more interesting.
Huh?
Funnily enough, this is the first time we've seen this special. This is actually Kite's rank 2 special. And it's very, very good. It does a massive amount of damage. It's not all that impressive to look at. For some reason, he just hasn't been doing it. Now, as to what the difference and chances are of proccing a rank 1, 2, 3, or weapon-based special ability, I honestly have no information on that at all. There doesn't seem to be any info. It seems to be just a random chance. Anyway, it's about time we watch Franz. Nice new set of music there. That's called Imperial Hero. It's actually used in Scenario 2 as well, when you get control of the Imperials, obviously Midian's force, also known as Shadow in this particular playthrough. It's an Imperial force, so once you promote them, they will actually use that theme. It's one of my personal favourite battle themes. Now, you saw there, Franz using a Dominion Ray. A lot of damage there. We're on open ground, on the same kind of ground that Franz is on, so there's no land effect bonus. And since he obviously is a lance-wielding hero, he dealt an awful lot of damage to Kite. Also like Kite with an illusion debuff, a secondary debuff. It's painful, to say the least, because it causes you to miss almost every attack. It's not as bad as Charm, but it's pretty bad nonetheless. We can remove it with Antidote 2, if we can get in range to do so. Slate's still suffering from a lack of defense there, but nothing we can't handle. I'm going to clear out these units before we spend any specific time engaging. Now, there's a reason that I moved Obright there. Obright, as you're probably aware by this point, his friendship bonus is defense. Next turn, you'll get to see how much of a difference that makes versus Franz's special attacks. It's also the reason that I decided to get his throwing axe skill up early on. Naturally, you want him to be close to the characters who are taking damage.
Arctic blast.
Kite obviously being the character who tends to take damage, so generally he's either going to stand to the side of Kite or behind Kite. Obviously, since he's a melee unit, doing that on a boss is not going to help him too much, but if he has a throwing axe, of course, and he's trained it up relatively early on, he can still do a good amount of damage. Particularly bearing in mind that the special friendship bonus that Kite gives, of course, is damage. See, I'm not entirely insane. Right. Gotta be a little bit careful here. I don't think the White Lords will go for civil. I think their AI priority is to go for the bridge, but I would assume if they are attacked...
Prepare to die.
Oh yeah, now we're throwing down. A lance charge only does that much damage. White Lords are way tougher than Kaiser Guard. Indeed, we're going to be running into a bunch next battle, and they're probably going to give us quite a bit of trouble. Better to see what they can do right now, knock out a couple of them to get some experience. Well-placed special there, and out goes the White Lord. 21 experience gained for that. For a level 10. Bearing in mind that he only had about a quarter of his health left, and you do gain less experience if you kill them from a quarter health than you do from full health. Makes sense. Now, let me show you the illusion in action and what actually happens. See? Generally speaking, it's not so much of a miss as such. It allows the opponent a vastly superior chance to either evade or block. Boom. I must say, Khan's specials, he's just learned Thunder Drop there, are great to watch. Which is probably one of the reasons I'm going to keep him around. We're actually running quite close to the line as regards to how many people we can have in our force. There you go, see. Dominion Ray did way less damage. Indeed, I believe it did 8 less damage than it did before as a direct result of that friendship bonus. So it's well worth having. Now, this could be a bit problematic. That's a normal hit from a White Lord on Eldar there. Very unpleasant. Now, I've skipped forward a little bit here as we're reaching the end. Wonderful counter takes out the White Lord. Franz is on very low health. We've killed all the White Lords that we can. The rest of them managed to escape. Needless to say, the Franz battle has been going back and forth, as you would expect. He's got no AoE or anything that could directly kill somebody in one hit, and he has no intention of moving from where he is. So we're healing up Kite, and we're going to finish off Franz and bring us to the end of this particular battle. It's not a great battle. I do like the intervention. I think that's pretty cool. The problem is having to watch it. Thankfully, you guys didn't have to do that. This battle took me about 40 minutes, whereas the only interesting bits to watch, come up to about 23 minutes of total footage. I don't really want to put Slate there just in case he turns around and says, hey, I will kill Slate. In the meantime, though, it's probably about time Obright got his due. And there we go. Franz down. That's the end of Battle 13. A silver ring as a nice bonus there, and a level for Obright. My name has been TotalBiscuit. This has been Let's Play Shining Force 3. Check out the rest of the thread for our other screenshots and videos.